right, we'll call the Scott County Board of Adjustment meeting January 5th, 2023 to order at 5 o'clock. I guess our first order of business is approval of December 2022 minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look them over?
I'll make a motion to approve as written.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Minutes from December 2022 are approved. Charlie, would you like to swear in those who plan to speak?
Yes, everyone signed in to speak tonight. If you could stand and raise your right hand, please. Oh, now, you don't all have to talk, you know. I mean, good. Do you swear or affirm the statement you're to give tonight to be the truth to the best of your information and belief? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Charlie. Right, there aren't any old applications. Moving on to new applications.
Thank you.
Application S 2023-01, Oxford Christian Church requesting a conditional use permit for the construction of a freestanding sign in the A1 zoning district and a variance to the maximum area for an electronic changeable copy sign from 30 to 50 at 2794 Old Oxford Village Lane.
Yes.
Please.
Thank you. So this, on the presentation, it does not include the conditional use permit for a pole sign. I meant to add it, forgot. Sorry, slipped up again, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it, man. I'm coming back from Cleveland. It's a whole different mindset. I kid that. But anyway, so it is a conditional use permit for the installation of the pole sign as well as a variance to the maximum square footage located at 2794, not 2497, Oxford Village Lane. It's located in the Oxford Historic District, which is a nationally recognized district located directly off of Oxford Village Lane, and its nearest arterial is the Newtown Pike, southeast of the intersection of Cynthiana Road and Newtown. Zoned A1, it's a 3.32 acre parcel, and staff does recommend approval of the request. So this is the parcel here. The church, and I'll be showing it in a moment, the church owns 3 A1 zone parcels, one of which has a church on it, one of which has a building that I'm not entirely sure what the operation is, and then the parcel in question. So just because it doesn't have physical structure for the building doesn't mean that it could be serving a church function. Maybe it's just an outdoor space, but they're looking for the installation on this specific triangle property. So these are the 3 parcels I mentioned, highlighted in yellow. Again, the church property, kind of a structural building with a property with a building on it that I'm not sure what it is, and then that empty one. When reviewing variances, we look at KRS 100.243, specifically mentioning the impacts on finding that the variance would not adversely impact public health, safety, or welfare, nor alter the character of the general vicinity, nor create hazard or nuisance, nor allow for unreasonable circumvention of zoning regulations. So we consider all 3 of those components. I don't have it on the board just because it's really heavy text, but in the packet and in the staff report, it kind of goes over the Scott County ordinance requirements on changeable copy signs, on performance standards related to said signs, and then on freestanding signage in the A1. So starting with freestanding signage, which is on page 3, one freestanding sign may be located on any premises, and at this time they are proposing 1. In the application, they do show 2 locations. The first location is the one that's noted in orange, which is on the it's on the one side of the stub off of Cynthiana Road, and then the other is just on the other side. It just kind of depending upon where the District 7 kind of determines is a good location and where they can best break ground and that type of thing. But so they're allowed that freestanding sign by right, same as they are, just because there's no structure on the property doesn't mean that there isn't church operations on the property, and so we conclude that it'd be reasonable to anticipate that it's not like an off-premises advertising sign because they do own the property, and just because there's nothing there doesn't mean that nothing happens related to what the sign would be advertising. There's no multiple tenants. However, for when we kind of go into more of the note side of things, the portions that are in question is note 8, specifically stating that a single pole sign may be allowable in any of the agricultural zones as a conditional use. It is reasonable, and it's oftentimes where people are having signage to advertise what's going on the property, and this happens in churches in zoned A1 parcels, as well as churches in other parcels, and it's reasonable to want signage in a more visible location in order to advertise what's going on the property. So staff believes that it is good reason to request the conditional use permit, and we'll go into it further discussing the recommended approval for it. They are requesting a changeable copy sign, so it's just an electronic sign, 50% of which would be on the bottom. There is an image in the packet that it's a little bit kind of hazy. It was hazy for me, so it's probably a little bit hazy for you guys, but it's just showing a standard 4 by 8 foot and 4 inch sign with about 50% of it being for an LED strip, and then the top of which would have just the name on it, similar to the churches that you see off of Cincinnati Road and other locations throughout the county. So it does meet our requirements for where they can be permitted and located. They do have the 1 sign limit for a changeable copy, and the question is that just that additional variance. And again, staff believes it's reasonable to allow for a larger area, as it's underneath the requirements or underneath the maximum for sign area, as well as it would kind of allow for more clear advertisement of everything on the property. Kind of going into the next portion is just the performance standards. So no electronic sign shall contain animated or moving or scrolling advertisements. They shall not display an image, symbol, or combination thereof for a period of time less than 60 seconds. A change in time, symbol, or combination shall be achieved within 2 seconds and occur simultaneously, and then it shall remain static until the next change. And just kind of another performance spec is that an electronic sign must contain a default mechanism that freezes the sign in one position if there's a malfunction, and automatically adjusts the intensity of its display according to the natural ambient light conditions at any given time. So, all things considered, it does allow for greater engagement with everything, and staff is in favor of this. These are our findings here, just mostly talks about improving the visibility of site operations. And then, again, this only mentions the variance, but this would apply for the conditional use permit in accordance with the staff packet, wherein we're going to recommend approval of both the conditional use permit and the variance, subject to, and I include 6 conditions of approval. So the first 3 are standard 3, getting building permitting, adhering to all of our other regs, and working with the other federal, state, and local regulations. The 4th one is that they would not install any further signage beyond existing and applied for signs. So nothing, just because we approved this doesn't mean we approved more. You need to come back if there needs to be additional signage. And then the 5th and 6th conditions are more related to operational details. These are typical what we include with other electronic signs throughout the county. While we've not seen them here, in other instances we have seen regulations where we want to know that the District 7 is in agreement with it, endorsing that the sign is, or rather not objecting to the proposed sign, and that the permits would not be issued prior to said receipt of a document saying they don't object to it. And then the 6th of which is just a performance standard to make sure that it's in good standing with the changeable copy performance standards that I listed, specifically points 9 and 8 in section 3 of the Stein ordinance. So this is often what we applied this to other signs at the city level. We haven't seen an electronic sign in the county level super recently, at least not since I've been here, so it's like a year, but nevertheless, we do have these kind of check-ins to make sure that everything's operating appropriately, and that District 7 or whomever the agency is finding that it is not causing any issues for motorists or other participants. So we'll have a 6-month checkpoint, pretty much.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? Nope. See that? No.
I'm Frank Wiseman. I represent Oxford Christian Church. I'm a member there. And this sign is being put up by my daughter as a memorial to my wife, who passed away this year. And we've already put the driveway in.
It looked nice.
Which,
It looks nice.
We're using now. And we put the signs up commemorating my wife this week, and memorializing her by the drive. But now we want to put this sign up to help the church for people to know that if they come down 62, it's a little awkward now to get into our church, going down Newtown and turning down Oxford Lane and so on. And this lane will let people get in, and also the sign will let them know what's going on at the church. It's an LED sign. We have a little model of it, but it's, and we'll have a computer in the church, so it lets us put the times and the very special events, pancake dinners and other things. So we hope this will help our church to grow.
Look, it all looked really nice. The signs look very nice also. Sorry
me?
about your loss. The signs look nice. Sorry about your loss.
Well, thank you.
Is anyone here to speak? Anyone else here to speak? All right, does anyone on the board have any questions? Charlie, there's,
Everything okay?
Well, I've got one, and I think I understand the answer, but well, at least what you put in the staff report says, the ordinance says, in no case shall the changeable copy exceed 30%, and yet you're recommending a variance.
We have had past instances where boards of adjustment have considered larger sign areas. For example, the Lamar signs off of Connector Road requesting the billboard to be from 0 to 100%.
Well, that's true, those are 0, I mean, 100%, aren't they?
Yes, so.
In that case,
based on that
tell them, change the language.
I'll talk
Yeah.
to Matt.
I'll
about
forget
it.
I read this and change the language.
I'll talk to Matt about the language.
Because when it says in no case, that really implies pretty strongly that variances aren't allowed.
Yes.
So,
Yes,
so,
I will mention it.
so
but
I
it's
haven't,
past
I
precedent.
haven't read that yet, so maybe I overlooked something, but tell them to change the language. No, I don't have any.
other than that, yeah, because I mean, I drove out there because I like that little area, and it's over there by Cynthia. I mean, it's going to be a good place for a sign like that, I think. All right, I'll entertain a motion then, if anyone.
I'll make the motion that we approve application number S-2023-001, the variance for Oxford Christian Church.
That'd be, and the conditional use permit.
And the conditional
bird, yeah.
use permit, and subject to staff, was it 6 variances? Or 6 recommendations?
I second the motion.
All right, we have a motion to approve in a second.
Yes.
All in favor? Say aye.
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 All right, motion passed. All right. If you plan on speaking, could you sign in, please, at the podium? All right, moving on. Second application, application S 2023-02, Aaron McLean, requesting a variance to the front yard setback from 50 to 40 and the rear yard setback from 100 to 75 for home construction, as well as variances to the front yard setback from 50 to 35 and the rear from 100 to 55 for accessory pole barn structure at 105 Cold Spring Lane.
Yep, I thought I changed it in this as well, but apparently I've
That's
really
the one I
goofed
was
it.
going off.
It is Cold Spring Lane. I'd like to apologize to that one. I had a bit of a complete glitch. But I'm not going to repeat all the variance requests again, but just for general reference, there are variances to the front and rear for a primary residence, in the front and the rear for an accessory pole barn structure located on Cold Spring Lane. I'm just going to struggle the whole time. This is the Logan Property Cluster Development, otherwise known as the Cold Spring Cluster Development, with direct access off of Cold Spring Lane, and then the nearest arterial being Fisher's Mill, just south of, well, not just south, but south of the intersection of Fisher's Mill and Frankfurt Road. It's a 1.9 acre parcel, zoned A1, and staff does recommend approval of the variances as requested. This is an aerial shot of the property here. This is one of the few lots that are still remaining, if not the only lot remaining, as part of the cluster development that is just not without a home. And it is accessed with a private easement that kind of ends at the kind of stub there, and then the private easement starts, goes about halfway through the parcel before it goes off to another separate private easement wherein like this, the property owner here and the 2 others that access it maintain a portion of it, and then the 2 others that access it maintain the other portion of it. So it's just kind of technicalities things. So when you're looking at this, and I may mention easements and stuff like that, it does kind of have this kind of shared ownership, semi-shared ownership not my problem. So generally speaking, that's where we're sitting there. This is the plat as developed. I have a more zoomed in photo with the illustrated utility easements, other access easements, tree preservation, et cetera, that I will be getting to momentarily, but I do just want to show how it relates to the remaining other lots as part of the cluster development and kind of its orientation. So the flat side, not the curved side, is north, and then the curved side is south. Will be kind of, everything will be oriented so that north is to your right, also my left. So if I reference anything and it's right and left, I did try to include the north arrow as much as possible so that we can try to eliminate as many questions on which way's north, because I had that a lot. I always get tangled. So this is kind of what I was talking about here. So I've color coded it and everything, just illustrating where the utility easements are, the shared private easements are, tree preservation easement, and then the rear and front yard. Along the east side, where the largest, we're going to kind of start down here. So this is a electrical line easement as well as a side yard easement combined. Technically, this property doesn't really have side yards per se. They're either combined with an easement, or if on the west side, it just kind of comes to a point and there's no side yard. It's just a rear, a front, and a side electrical. That is, again, that shared situation. Along the south side, we have that private easement place that at some point is not the responsibility of this specific property owner, but they do kind of share that private driveway easement. From there, they have, in between that and the build line is the 20-foot wide utility easement, and then there's a 50-foot build line from that point onward. So the distance from the edge of the easement to the edge of the paved driveway to the buildable property is 50 feet, and then so on and so forth. So the utility easement in the front is within the front build line from that drive. I'm going to keep saying easement, that access route. On the west side, you can tell that there's no side yard setback. It just comes to that point. That's where I was just talking about it. So that area all in pink is either the front, the rear, or in most cases both, given the curvature of the property. And then there's a 20-foot wide utility easement on that westernmost between the build line and the property line that's existing. On the north side, we have a 20-foot wide utility easement between the cluster development and the adjoining property to the north, as well as a tree preservation easement typical of any cluster lot development. None of these would be within the tree preservation. None of these would be within the tree preservation easement, but it is just important to note that this does have an easement, much like all of our other clusters. And then from there, from that tree preservation easement to where the rear yard setback is completed is about 50 feet, and then from the rear property line to that area is 100 feet, just for general kind of clarity that it is 50 feet from the tree preservation. It's just kind of noted a little bit weird, and so I wanted to make sure we're all in mutual understanding of how much easement and how much stuff is going on this property. So this is the applicant's drawing, and then I kind of scaled it to fit on the easement map that I've already shown in the situation, just so we can better illustrate where the placement would be as it relates to setbacks and other things. The placements are mostly just within rear yard, or are entirely within either the rear or front yard situation. They would not be getting into the tree preservation easement nor a utility easement. The front yard would be kind of adjusted accordingly, with, given that it kind of comes to a pinch point, it looks like a very large rear yard setback request. However, just given the kind of pinching in and the closure of the property, it's not, I mean, it is imposing into the front or the rear yard and the front yard setback. It just isn't as huge when you think about it with the kind of shape of the property in mind. Oftentimes with these tree preservation easements and with these cluster developments, we do see requests for reduced rear yard setbacks because of that tree preservation easement reducing the usability of the property. And that is applicable, staff believes, in this instance for the rear yard setback. And then given the kind of curvature and the bend to the driveway area and the private drive, that also kind of reduces the usability of the front of the property with that front easement that drive easement and then the build line from there. And kind of a weird triangle-shaped home would be a bit awkward for the community. There is an active HOA and they do have deeds and covenants. That's not something that we have any jurisdiction over, but I just wanted to make that aware that that was included with the application information. It does kind of go through some more minute details of materials and other things, but there is an active, at least kind of regulatory group that's kind of having deeds and covenants that are outside of our control. They don't really overlap nearly as much with this, but just to kind of let everybody stay in the loop. So with everything situated, I've taken the 2019 aerial of the existing tree lines as well as some of the, you can see a little bit more of the methodical plantings, which is more of that tree preservation easement, and then roughly where those barn would be and the proposed residence would be located as it relates to this property. So it wouldn't be too far in or too far out. It would be kind of in line with the general area and general spacing. And it would not impose on any of the easements. Noted, I'm sick of the word, I'm so sorry. These are our findings here. I have 4, just kind of going through its history, going through the utility easements, and then going through the kind of adversely impacting public health, safety, or welfare. It's not getting into those areas. It's not impacting those things in an atypical fashion or otherwise. And staff does believe it meets the findings requirement, which is why staff recommends approval of the variances to the front and rear for the construction of the home, and then for the front and rear for the construction of the accessory structure. You can read them if you want, but we've already established I'm not great with numbers or words, so like, I'll do my best if you so please, but.
Why are they setting back off that north side a little bit more, since that's more of the open area? Go back to that picture, maybe I missed something, on the north side there. This side. Like, is there more,
That would, I mean,
you say that was north?
the
The
north
wider
is.
side, like, why are they setting up more toward the pinch point? Is that just the way it lies in the neighborhood?
I
Because if
mean-
they backed up, we'd lose the front on the house, right?
I'd have to speak to the
Okay,
applicant.
I was
to speak
just,
on
no, I
that
was
one.
just
I'm not
curious. I thought maybe
entirely-
they had said to you, okay, that's
No,
fine.
I'm not
Yeah.
entirely familiar of the exact reasoning
fine.
behind things. I mean, their drawing may not be to scale, my kind of
Okay.
reflection might not be to scale. It may be closer to that electrical easement that I'm showing.
That's fine.
It just kind of, right now as it stands,
All right,
yeah.
all right, thank you, Liz. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Are you done?
I am done, unless there's anything else.
Would you like to, anyone have any questions for Elise?
Yeah,
Okay.
just looking on the application
Mhm.
to the board, the project site is, it's got Midway, Kentucky. Is that what the mailing address will be rather than Georgetown?
There's portions like that are in Corinth that get Corinth addresses on the north side.
Where have I heard that?
And then there's portions on, like Fisher's Mill, a lot of Fisher's Mill have a postal code and nearest post office being in Midway versus being in Scott County, so.
It is in Scott County, though.
It is in Scott County,
Yeah, we
yes.
went by there.
It is a weird pocket of where it's like,
All right.
where do I live? But it is in Midway
Beverly,
technically,
Midway.
but it is within the boundaries of Scott
Scott
County,
County.
so it's our
Okay.
issues.
All right, so we have to deal with you. So
Yes.
hop on up here, sir. Would you like to add anything to her
It's a-
presentation?
It's a weird pocket, but it's my pocket now. So, we bought this back in October, and, on the, if I can, the reason why we're positioning this where we're at is on the subdivision, each lot has a willow oak tree on it. It's, most of them's like 30, 40 foot tall. So I'm assuming that that was by design. So on my lot though, I'm lucky enough I have 2.
Well, you have one there.
And what I want to do is position the house
Okay,
in between those 2.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, because there was more buildable area there. I figured, I was trying to see if there was a tree line,
Yeah.
but that, yeah, okay. I understand.
There is an existing electrical line, probably like 20 feet into the property. I don't have it noted, but it's kind of where the start of the private drive begins, and that easement is an overhead one.
Yeah,
In case it's kind of.
I was just curious when I saw that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Does anyone have any questions for them?
Where are you gonna put the septic system at?
Someone
Can't
else-
overlook that
Someone
part.
else's plot?
I haven't even thought of that yet, you know,
That'd have to be approved, though.
I would assume, north. That's what I would assume.
By the
The
willow
way the land lays and all that, that'd probably be the best place for it.
Is one of those willow oaks on the east side of your proposed house location? Is that why that larger area is?
Yes.
I don't know if it's,
Yeah, okay.
There it is.
if you know which one of these random dark colored blobs, which is willow, but
That,
I'm gonna assume the one on that side, that's from what he said.
I would assume it's like
Yeah,
this one.
that one. Yeah, the lighter ones.
Okay, so you do have room for a septic system, that's what I was concerned about.
Yeah, it'd probably have to
But
be
all
on this
that has
other
to
side.
come before the health department
Yeah,
anyway for
yeah.
approval and all that, right?
Yes.
can't get septic
Yeah.
approval without kind of having a building record, septic needs to. They can, I believe they can put them underneath utility lines or closer proximity. It's just more of the overhead built structures that we don't like in utility easements and otherwise.
Anyone have any more questions for him? Is there anyone else here that'd like to speak on this application? Charlie, I would say this meets the reasonable use, would you think, at some point?
Well, I mean, just the basic shape, all of those easements, and, I mean, yeah,
I had a great time filming this for you guys.
yeah, the only thing that jumps out just from the drawing is the larger area to the east, but
Yeah,
there's
that's
so
all.
many complications, I'm not gonna ask a question about that. That's just, there's just a lot of complications
No,
on
that is
siting.
east, I've said north, you're right, I'm sorry, I had my orientation wrong, it's the east, that's it.
With the north arrow forward.
Yeah, well,
Down is east.
I have problems with directions, kind of like your numbers, so. All right, well,
Yep.
I guess if no one has any further discussion,
I make a motion to approve, S 2023-02, based on the, recommendations of the, yeah.
all right, I'll second the motion, so we have a motion on the table and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No one opposed? Motion passes.
Very good. And then I will send, Frank and Aaron, I will be sending letters tomorrow that you can then take onwards and upwards to whomever needs them. Most likely just building permitting and another folk, but you can take those out and run with them or don't run with them, that's up to you. I'll let you do your thing. I'm gonna grab it.
I know.
You are
They're
good to go.
fancy had to get here early, so.
You'll still be fine. I'm not holding you hostage here. The door does open.
I will say this, you're underpaid. The presentation is awesome.
Did she do? No
Sign
questions
anything up
left.
here?
No, you don't need to sign anything for it. I'll just send it to you tomorrow, or I'll send it, I think I have Charles Garnett's email.
Charlie Garnett's,
Yep,
yes.
and so I will send that to him, and then if he needs it or you need it, I'll address it to the church, so you guys can
We
take
just
it.
take it through the
Building.
building
inspection.
and
Building and all that fun stuff. The stuff that I would hate to do. I don't like, that sounds like so much work. Alrighty.
Okay, moving on. Application S 2023-03, Dustin Spillman requesting a variance to the front yard setback from 50 to 38 for accessory structure construction at 117 Sabin Drive.
Yep. As you
Elise.
stated, this is our front yard variance request in a Westwood subdivision with direct access off of Sabin Drive, and then nearest sort of arterial being Wrights Lane, and then even more so is Cincinnati Road, just north of the Northern Elementary School, which is also access off of Wrights Lane. Saw them today, they look really cold outside. I felt really bad for those kids, but they were running around outside. I was like, that sounds awful. I'm gonna go into my nice warm car. This is an A1 zone parcel that's just barely over 10 acres. It's 2,000ths of an acre over, so real important. But anyway, staff does recommend approval of the request. This is the aerial of the property. So this is a 2019 image, so the home was not built at this time. It has had a previously requested variance submitted and approved in December of 2019 for the primary residence on the property from 50 to 38 feet. Specific conditions said that it only applied to the residents, and so circumstances being as they are and described, there was kind of a misunderstanding of sorts of just what was what and what it applied to, and kind of things got a little bit jumbly and that type of thing, and so construction did start on the structure in question, and then it got flagged, and Haddock's called us, and I've been working with their office manager, and then I've been working with the applicant to get everything in line so that even though it did technically already start, we can kind of take a step back, pause it, look at it again from our side of things, and legitimize everything before building inspection and issues come up and otherwise. So this is the property right now. This is the subdivision. I will have a more zoomed in one. It's really big, so I didn't have it all on one page, but kind of the smaller lot development is all kind of sneaky right on the front. And then as you go back, there's all these 10+ acre parcels, most of which are like this one, where it's 2/1000 of an acre above 10. Where you're like, that's great. To each their own, man. So this is kind of the placement, and then this is the zoomed in portion of the property here. I do want to note right off the bat, there's a drainage easement. It'll relate to the topography that we have an exhibit for that you guys have been provided, and I will have on the screen. Eventually, kind of going over that, but there is that kind of drainage easement through the property that measures about 40 feet wide, kind of down and everything. For this one, down is indeed south. So just for general reference, down is south and up is north. So I felt like Westwoods is pretty familiar, so I did some research into who's who and what's what, and I've processed, well, this will be my fourth one with Westwood subdivision, where people are needing variances to the front yard setback, or in one instance, the side yard setback, in order to construct the property and use it, and as is in accordance with the A1 district standards of primary residence and then accessory farm-related structures, which are permitted uses in the district. So the requests have varied from 50 feet to 7.5 feet in one instance, or 50 feet to 30 feet. And only in this instance and otherwise have we seen a request that is kind of more than 30 feet. So this one and then the other one to have it, everything else is 30 feet or under. And these are all, I've specifically pulled and made sure that all of these ones are from the phase 2 development portion, wherein all the properties are 10 acres or greater. So just before we kind of fret a little bit, these are all the big ones with 2/100ths of a 2/1000ths of an acre. This is the information submitted by the applicant. I've included in there. It's a little bit kind of difficult to read on the screen, so I'll kind of go through it. The area in pink is the existing residence. The area in light blue is the proposed existing accessory structure. And then the kind of fuzzier lines is an existing kind of very dense tree line with kind of Sabin going underneath.
I'm sorry, what did you say the fuzzy line is?
It's an existing kind of dense tree line situation where
Okay.
after that point, it just gets really kind of,
Oh, that's not where it drops off?
I mean, it does. The whole place kind of drops off, but it has a dense tree portion
Okay,
as well.
okay.
So you can kind of see it a little bit here where it's just
Yeah,
kind of
okay.
real all the way up and then a couple flat areas here and there. They just kind of include some information on just where the water runoff comes from, just from the applicant's perspective, and what other items? And then just kind of the water flow kind of towards the center and down, that type of situation. Besides that, that's kind of that whole thing there. I went out to the site. It was still kind of wet there, so I didn't really like adventure very far. I want to just get sucked into a pit, so I did just kind of keep an eye on things. But this is what the home looks like right now. The structure is kind of northish on Sabin there, but this is the structure that was approved with that variance in 2019. And then this is the structure that is currently midway under construction or so right now. So you can see it has an exposed front. That doesn't mean that an exposed front would remain. It's just that when we did find out that it needed to come back, we did order a, hey, can you just pause for a moment, let us situate things, and then If it is approved, you can move forward. If not, then we'll have to kind of deal with enforcement stuff. So this is the structure as it stands right now. Everything good on your side of things, hopefully. I got your call, so you're sneaking around. But anyway, so this is the structure as it stands right now. Some of the siding is there, some of it is exposed still. I would anticipate it not to stay this way. I feel like it's not a very much structural, but you know, that's to each their own. That's currently what the situation is as it stands as of 10 a.m. this morning. So this is the topography. I have a better illustrated one, and unfortunately the lines are really hard to read in this one, but that bright blue line, which corresponds with the plat that I have sent with you guys, is a drainage line, and then all the blue lines that kind of branch from that point are all the other kind of little offshoots towards that main line and then down. And you can see all these kind of lines that make it look really hazy, like I have a really old camera, is all these varying 2-foot contours, specifically because this is one of those areas that has a 2-foot and not a 5, which is great. Anyway, so this is the change in slope stuff that I asked Jay to do. So the area kind of in that not colored portion is in alignment with that drainage area I showed there. And then the darker the color, the greater the slope. So 35 or greater is a very dark brown, and then the light kind of mustard color is 20%, and then the kind of orange color on the in-between is the 30%. So it does have pretty notable topography, similar to the other properties in here. That pocket where you can kind of see a little bit of not a lot going on is where the existing kind of residence is already at, and then the little structure is kind of in that area as well. So it is one of the, at least when you're going for the accessibility side of things, it appears to be one of the more accessible portions of a 10-acre parcel. So we have seen this type of thing before. This is the, if we were to consider the utility easements and the building line, which I've noted in colors, this is the usable portion of the property that would not require a variance. So the property is pretty unusable, at least as when you're looking at the amount of color on the page and the drainage situation. So because of that, I mean, there's just not a lot going on in a lot of things that it can really go for. And so after all things considered, these are some pictures from the applicant showing the sloping taken on a day that is not as wet. Thank God, because I thought about it and I was like, I'm not going down there. I'm good. So the portion on the left is the area behind the shed, and the portion on the right is the area on the curve where Westwoods and Sabin kind of intersect. So my findings are very straightforward, and staff does recommend approval of the front yard request with the 3 conditions of approval we see with variances. They adhere to zoning regs, they adhere to all other regs from other agencies, and they get a building permit. But besides that, that's all I got. Is there anything I can answer from you guys?
I don't have any questions. Ian? No? Would the applicant like to add anything?
First off, I never realized her job was so, like that guy talking earlier, I was blown away when she sent me the report, so I agree, she's not paid enough.
I mean, you guys aren't paid enough, we're in the same boat.
Yeah, and secondly, we're fairly new to the community, and I do feel like we owe the county and the board an apology, where we.
We use the microphone, I can't hear him very
The microphone is for recording purposes, so unfortunately it doesn't project it, you just have to kind of just a little bit.
Speak louder.
Yeah. Yep. Secondly, I feel like we owe the county and you guys an apology, because where we came from, if your property was ordered a variance, then it pertained to the property, and my ignorance and assumption of that is what has caused partially for us to be in the situation that we're in. So I apologize for that. Looking through everything, like they said, we did start the whole process without getting a variance approval. There was a lot of miscommunication between ourselves and the board from our HOA, is the reason why we began the construction of this. As soon as I called and spoke with her, she asked me to stop until we got it cleared up. That is the point that I stopped. And that is led us to where we're at. One thing that was asked of, actually two things were asked of us. One thing was asked by Paul himself was to, he didn't want to receive any complaints, so he asked us to go get a petition signed by everybody. I brought that with me. The petition is signed by everybody who is in complete agreement, except for people that were out of town currently for whatever reason. There were 3 residences that we could not get in contact with. So I have that with me. And then the next day, Paul called me and asked me to show people pictures of what it looked like. So everybody that has signed a petition has seen the image of what it looks like. Right now, it's the color that it is because we stopped working on it. It's hardy, so it's not. We try to do everything to make our property look good, and it takes a lot of equipment in order to do that. We don't want the property to look derelict, and I don't want my equipment to get ruined, so that is the purpose for this building. If you have looked at building prices, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with, we're doing the same siding, which is the hardy siding plank on the side and the trim. That will all be painted the same color as the home itself. The front of the building will have stone pillars in front of each one of the posts on each end and in the middle that matches the stone that's on the house. And then there will be, but the only thing it won't match is the barn wood that will go on above those 3-foot tall pillars. And then, of course, there will be garage doors on it that will match the garage doors that are on the home. So in essence, everything will be the exact match as the home. I've already called the builder's office and got the color match for the paint, the rock, everything that I have. Feasibly, there's really nowhere else to put the building. If you look to the right of our driveway, I don't know if you could back up that picture to the home that you took, that one, yep. So to the right of that driveway is the overhead electric, and it crosses the street right, probably 5 feet off our driveway, it crosses the street. So it wasn't feasible to put it on that side, even though it is flatter right there. That is probably the most feasible spot to put it, but I knew there were overhead electric and assumed that the easement there wouldn't like that being there. So that's why we didn't put it there. The rest of the property is just such a steep grade and has water runoff everywhere that we have nowhere to put it. So the options for us were on the inability to protect about $40,000 in equipment or construct it where it's at. Again, I do admit fault and I do apologize for beginning without the variance, and that was an ignorance on my part because I didn't realize that you give building variances, not whole property. So for that, I am sorry.
Does anyone have any questions for him yet? No? Is anyone else here to speak? All right, thank you, sir.
Good evening.
Have you signed in yet, please? Could you
No.
put your name on the?
Well, I'll write it in. Do you swear affirm the statement you're about to give to be the truth to the best of your information and belief?
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Paul Haddix. I'm president of the HOA there in Westwoods, and I'm speaking on the behalf of the rest of the neighborhood. I did ask Ms. Spillman to go out and ask the neighbors if they would approve it or not. And in hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have done that, only because it creates kind of a confrontational situation. And so I know some may have signed just because he was in front. And I think one here is with us tonight is Cindy Baker. So what I did is I thought about that, and we used SurveyMonkey to create a survey and ask all the neighbors. And we just asked the neighbors that own 10-acre lots that are in the back. We didn't bother everyone, only because that's their little neighborhood back there. That's the estate area. And so, which creates a non-biased, unconfrontational opinion. And the results come back out of 13 that I, not counting mine, there was 5 saying no and 4 approving. Okay, so I own 8 other lots that I'm trying to, that I'll eventually build, try to sell, and want to maintain good property value. And my vote is no, which would make it 13-4 in favor of not approving. So, but that's just, I just want to share that with you. The majority do not really approve of where the shed is located at in relation to the road and the house. And other neighbors in the back abide to our request and the HOA restrictions that says any shed or outbuilding has to be placed behind the rear corner of the house. And 2, most importantly, which Mr. Spillman did go through the proper channels, anyone is supposed to get approval by the developer, HOA board, for such additions to their property. Mr. Spillman did on his first shed, and we approved, but did not do on the second one. We had no idea what was being constructed, where and what, and until it was being built, and our neighbors called us, hey, is this approved? We had no idea. So I just want to share that with you, that, that it probably, this may have all taken a different direction if we were involved more, if I had a chance to meet Mr. Spillman, like I did another resident, and met with him personally on a location where he puts the outbuilding. Maybe we could have had some discussions, maybe where to put it. Maybe I had some thoughts, maybe helped with a different location. That would work with a little bit of excavation, tuck it in behind the house. Might cost a little bit more excavation-wise, but it could have followed, what we set forth to maintain property values for all of the neighborhood. So I just want to share it with you. I'm against it, of course, and some of the other neighbors are against it. I think we provided documentation to Lisa's office of, our survey. And so anyway, I want to share it with you, and hopefully you will not approve.
Thank you. Charlie, cater to my ignorance here.
Well, let me
How do we
let me
stand
make,
with HOAs?
well, let me make one note
Okay.
before. Even though Paul is not an applicant in this, I do legal work for Paul. It has nothing to do with P&Z or Board of Adjustment or anything. In fact, not related, and it's not related to this property or the subdivision. So it has nothing to do with that, and what I do doesn't influence this at all. But I want that in the record.
Okay.
Now, secondly, what about the ignorance?
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you your opinion even. I'm going to ask you my ignorance. HOA, all of the, the guidelines they're speaking about the neighborhood versus our approval, not approval. How does that play out?
In the strictest sense, it is irrelevant to us, except on occasion we pay attention to it, not because that changes our basic consideration, because our basic consideration is KRS, and if there's another appropriate spot, we turn it down. If there are no other appropriate spots and this is necessary to reasonable use of the property, we approve it. And it doesn't matter whether HOA says yea or nay. Now, it's kind of bothering that no request was made even to the HOA, because in effect, let's just assume it did fit our standards and we approved it. Well, now the owner's got approval from the government, so to speak, even though that really isn't our role either, but it kind of appears that way. And he's got an HOA that hadn't approved it, and they can take him to court and stop it, you know, without too much difficulty, and we've kind of added to confusion.
That's, yeah.
So, you know, there are simply times when, you know, maybe a place doesn't have a real active HOA, and we've just paid no attention to that. Where there is an active one and there's been no attempt to go through that, that just kind of bothers me that we may be creating, you know, an impression that they can do something that they really can't. Not only in this case, Paul's testified, and he's a builder, that yes, with some adjustments, they could in fact put it back where, you know, their regs require. And of course, that's part of our statutory.
If there is
Since
another place.
If there is another place that can reasonably be used, then we must insist that they use that. So, that's not a yes or no answer.
So would we be appropriate then, I mean, do we like not approve this, or do we have this pending, is there another place, let
Well,
them work that out
How about
first, how do we do that?
yeah, how about a suggestion?
You can, yes, sir.
How about a suggestion?
I'm just trying to educate myself first.
And both folks can certainly speak to this, but I think it may be appropriate, since there's been testimony that in fact there is another appropriate spot, to, instead of up or down vote,
Right.
to move this to next month and let the applicant bring back a reason why that is not a reasonable alternative.
Yes.
And because if it's not a reasonable alternative, and this is a reasonable use of the property that otherwise, you know, should be accommodated, well, then the board may want to go that direction. If, on the other hand, yes, I'm sure it's more expensive, because anytime you start working on grades and all, that's more expensive.
But we don't,
But
we
if
don't do
it's
that.
not unreasonable, then that's really where the statute tells us we're supposed to go.
Right.
But that was brought up here. The owner hasn't had a chance to, you know, present anything, I mean, maybe a simple opinion, but something maybe a little more substantive than that. And this would give him 30 days to present that.
But should we go ahead and let,
Oh, but certainly they can speak to it now, absolutely.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that might be an appropriate way to proceed on this.
and then also go ahead and hear from the other neighbor, okay?
Oh, sure,
Yes,
yeah, I
yes.
mean, finish
Okay.
tonight,
All right.
but
I'm just
then-
trying, yeah.
but that may
So
be
that's all
appropriate.
you have to say for now,
Yeah,
without
and
questions?
last thing is,
Okay.
there was no building permit applied for that shed as well, and a building permit should have been applied for.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'll come back to you in a second, sir. Would you like to speak?
Hi, my name is Cindy Baker, and my husband and I live at the house just to the left of their property. So Dustin did come, he started building it, and we did contact Paul to ask a question of whether or not that building was permitted, because we felt like it was taking away from our property. We have a very nice home, a lot of nice homes back there. Paul did tell me some of what was going on with it, and then Dustin came along, met me outside, and asked me to sign the petition that he had. He went through, you know, telling me how much money he had into it and things like that. They're a young couple. We have nothing against them. We like them. They're a friendly couple, as much as I know. I don't know them real well, but I actually felt sorry for them, having $3,000 that they put into a structure. And he also told me that Paul had approved the structure and then reneged it. So I do know that that was told to a couple of other people. That's hearsay. They're not here.
Yeah, if
You know,
I
they're
could
not
just,
here.
I mean, I think there's
They're
been a
not here.
lot of confusion, so I don't think that will even be relevant to our
Okay.
decision, so if you could just,
So anyway.
yeah, I appreciate that, though.
After I thought about it, I talked with my husband about it. We said, you know, they've got $3,000 into that, but if it does hurt our property value, and if you look at it right now, and I know he's in the middle of construction on it, but it looks like there's a barn. The pictures that I have are a little bit clearer. And nothing against you guys. I know you're in the middle of working on that, but it looks terrible. It looks terrible. I'm not the only neighbor back there that says the same thing. So we don't want it to go through. We feel like it will hurt our property. If it does hurt our property, it's going to be a lot more than $3,000. So I did mention to Dustin, when he told me that not everybody was in agreement with it, I said, why didn't you put it back in the woods? Because up and to the left, there is a patch of woods, a pretty decent sized patch of woods there. And I did ask him, why didn't you build that there? because then probably it would have been back far enough, it would have been hidden, nobody would have complained about it. And he said, yeah, I probably should have. So,
Well, I mean,
You know, I feel
that
for
will be
them.
investigated here in this
exactly.
next
So I
month.
feel for them, but again, if it's gonna hurt our property and the other properties back there, I do not feel like you should approve this at all. So,
Appreciate that.
okay, thank you very much.
Anybody have any questions for Cindy? No. Thank you, ma'am. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, I just want to clear a few
Yeah.
things up. Like, all this is part of what I said when I first came up here, that there was some severe miscommunication.
I appreciate that. I can see that, yes.
Looking,
Yes.
looking back at it, his office is saying that I never applied for this. I did, and I sent it, and they can't find the emails for it. When the first shed was put in, I did the same thing, and I called because I didn't hear anything. She told me on the phone, yes, it has been approved. After I called, she sent me the documentation saying, yes, the HOA is approved for you to put that in there. I did the same thing with this one, and this is where the miscommunication comes in. And I've explained that to him, and he didn't like the answer, and it got rough there for a while. But I sent an email. I never received anything. I called and said, has my shed been approved? The answer was yes. So I started construction that day. When that all occurred, he called me back, and he's like, hey, where's the email that we sent you showing it was approved? We don't do approvals based on hearsay. And I said, well, you did with the first one. And I think what has occurred is I asked, is my shed approved? Somebody looked back, saw that my first shed was approved, and they told me yes.
Well-
And I think that's where the massive miscommunication came from. Also, no offense, but I did not tell her that there's a better place, I should have put it somewhere else. That
Well-
did not occur, and I know that's hearsay,
Yeah,
but.
Yeah, okay, I think,
But
I
the
think
real
moving
things I
forward, we
want to
not-
get
yeah,
with,
okay.
though, and I want just more of the meat for you guys, are the truths. I called and asked if I needed a building permit for the first shed. The answer was no. I called for the second shed. The answer was no. Actually, the question was I asked, and they asked me, is it a shed? Yes, sir. Then no, you don't need a building permit. So there's that. I've already talked about the HOA deal, and then the excavation, I think you put it a little bit lightly, and if it does get tabled, I'm pretty sure that I could bring it back to you and show you that we're not talking a little excavation. I mean, we're talking major work
That is,
to put this behind the building. This isn't pushing dirt over the hill. This is, the
Well,
grade
not-
is way too significant.
not to cut you off,
Yeah.
but I think, you know, regardless of what has happened, we're gonna have to move
Yeah.
forward now.
Right.
And there's been a lot of confusion. There does seem to be opinion that there is another site. You think
Yeah.
there's not another site. And as Charlie mentioned earlier, I think we need to take this month.
Yep.
You need to come back with
Yeah.
why the other areas
Sure.
won't work. You need to go ahead and communicate with Paul if
Yeah.
you think there are areas. If y'all could, you know, that's what you do, work out, and then we'll just meet in a month
Yeah.
and see what's actually, and not
Yeah.
hearsay, not what's happened till now, but moving forward,
Yep.
what
And
is available.
I do know some neighbors are unhappy with how it sits now. It's because it was the request of the county that I stop, or I would have been done 3 days
No,
after
no,
this, you know.
we understand
So-
all of that. But like I said, before any other miscommunication happens, we need to all be ducks in the same row here. So let's
I
get all this
appreciate your
figured
time.
out. And, Charlie, anything else?
Well,
besides
yeah,
some
if I
information on
could,
that?
just on this, the confusion about sheds.
Yes, sir.
But when you ask that question, because and I don't work in or with building, so I have no idea. This is more the ignorance we're talking about that we need answers to. But a shed, generally, if it's on footers and it's got structure and a roof, it requires a building permit.
That was my.
Sheds that you bring in on a truck bed and set down because you buy them, you know, out here on one of these lots, that
So-
does not require a building permit to my knowledge. But this clearly is a structure that would require a building permit.
So that was my understanding with the first one also, and I told them exactly what I was doing with it. That first one, to be level like that, is, I had to pour concrete piers that were almost 4 foot tall
I can't
and
imagine that not
deep
taking a building permit.
to put that on there, and the question with the first one was, do I need a building permit? And their answer was, is it just a shed? Yes, sir, then no. And that's the answer that I've received on both of
Okay.
these. So, maybe I should document who I speak to from now on with this stuff, because
Yeah.
then we could see where their head was at with it. But both times I've called and I've asked about it, and both times I've gotten the same answer.
I think, like we said, there's just been miscommunication,
I agree. and that's where I was
definitions
at
of
to begin with.
things, you know, so I
Yes,
think,
ma'am.
like I said, no animosity, just moving forward, we're gonna have to figure out how to resolve it.
just educate Kevin?
Yes, sir.
It requires any shed or outbuilding, 200 square feet and over requires a building permit. Anything smaller than that does not require.
All right, well, this is well over 200 square feet.
Both of them are. Actually, that one there is 12, yeah, so
Was
that's
it
about
20? This
400
is,
square
yeah,
feet.
700 or something.
And the other, no, it's 12 by 20.
Oh, okay.
And then
okay.
the other one behind it is also 12 by 20. So they're both,
But they're both over 200?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
yes, sir.
Okay, well, I guess then the proper action would be to have a motion.
Well, you're
that we-
acting chair. I think you can continue this until next
Yes,
month.
Yes.
And ask the applicant to document and bring back that documentation on why there isn't another alternative location.
Which the best way would be if you would communicate with Mr. Haddix, who says there are, or someone who says,
Well,
no.
I mean, certainly that.
That would,
if
that would
there
help
could
what
be
they're
some,
bringing back for you as
Well,
well.
But otherwise,
and-
even if that's not
Right.
necessarily desired, then
Yeah.
no, he can bring back
Okay.
whatever he feels is appropriate,
Yeah.
and then it'll be up to you all to decide if it is appropriate.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion then as chair,
Not a motion, I think as chair, you
Oh.
can simply just do that.
just do it.
Just
All
continue
right,
it to next month.
then we will continue
for him to bring
application
back that
S
information.
2023-03, Dustin Spillman, your variance, till next month.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Paul, Commissioner Smith, let me ask you. When you're working, is there anything that you, when you're taking care, you could document what it, you put it in the back?
Oh, if you want to.
Why don't y'all discuss that option? I think
That was just my
really-
question, because if he goes out and justifies what won't work, he needs to know what you're saying
Yeah,
will work.
yeah,
I mean,
if
it
you
would
could
make it
do
easy.
that, because you're doing a lot of building out there, so that would help him and,
The HOA approval.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying, let's just back
Well,
up.
you know
and
what-
see.
I'm happy to work with them.
Oh,
All right.
I really am.
You know what we go
I'm
through.
for the community, but I'm also for the better of the community.
Well, you know what we go through in Canewood on
Oh,
the
yeah.
HOA.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir, I appreciate that.
Yeah, okay, so if y'all can work together on something like that, okay, that'll help both of you.
So, next thing on the agenda will be our, the other continuing education.
I'll be sending an email tomorrow for some YouTube videos, just saying things. Currently, there's no active events. If there's anything in particular that you guys, like there's a topic where like, I wish I knew more about this, just fire out an email or text or call us.
Well, we just got educated on shed definition, can we count that?
We can consider that. Well, there's like ADU stuff. We did the
Okay.
ADU conference that I think those are still available.
Do you have
online.
our current status of, do we all need it, or,
I think
'Cause I know
you
we
and
had done
Janet
some.
are,
we're good right now, aren't we? I thought we were.
you're either like an hour short or you're good. I'd have to look
Okay.
at it. Tommy, you're obviously new. So
I went to that one thing all day, so.
yes,
Yeah.
you can send that to me. Just fire off an email. I don't,
Then that
like
would-
your registration thing or
I don't even
something
remember what
like
the
that.
name of it was.
Time to Google.
If there's something, Google it, just let me know you went. Just tell me how many hours you were there
Thank you, sir.
for.
Dustin,
No problem.
Dustin.
I like
Wait just a
fun
minute.
facts about what the presentation was on, just to kind of be like, I went there and I learned that stormwater means this word, and you're like, okay, cool, I'll take your word for it, like,
Yeah, just throw
just
something
something
out
like
there.
that,
Yeah.
just to, I think
Something in
it's
the
kind of
books.
fun.
It was primarily for the new, I might want to blank, I'm sorry.
I have those moments all the time.
Yeah. Not satellites, but for the,
Cell towers. No?
Solar,
yeah, solar, that's what it was.
I need to know about
Yeah.
solar panels.
yeah, I can see if we can find some solar stuff, but, there's like events going in and out. There's something that's coming through that we got an ad about for pipeline management and pipeline safety and EMA stuff. I don't think that's quite what you guys want to do, but if you want it super badly.
Can you check our status?
For
and-
Yeah.
pipeline?
Yep.
Send me a
For like
text or
gas
something.
pipeline, like
I think
Columbia
we're
Gas
good.
on
We might have
25,
been
I
at
think.
Howard, so I think we-
Pipeline safety,
we
EMA
were
type
successful.
stuff. We got an advertisement for it in the office and I'm like,
Okay.
what is this? And we tried to read
I
it.
think he's wanting to say something.
Yeah, I think,
Yes.
if that's all, and meeting adjourned, yes?
Bring
Motion
down the
to
hammer.
adjourn.
Boom,
I
there you
didn't get
go.
my gavel today.
There you go.